lights in the village. Satellite telephone actually did not work, although this looked very impressive. This town did have a place for a helicopter while we were there. A Japanese retired executive who had twisted his ankle got carried up to this village for a couple of days on a chair that one of the reporters carried him in, and got helicoptered out. He actually would wait a couple of days in this village after they got here. And the whole village came out to watch the helicopter and carry him off. These are some of the quarters that we actually sent back. We're getting close to going across the pass. And we've already gone through much of our food, a couple of bottles of propane, and they're being sent back down. These were probably the least educated. They had been locally hired. You'll see a picture of the rest of the quarters who were all quite a bit more sophisticated later on. That's Manaslu. There were people climbing this thing. That's that's high, 28,000 feet. We ran into one of the climbers who was coming back down at the sort of the end of the possible envelope window to climb that. And there are people up there now. They were being supplied, carried in and out by helicopter. Just this one guy happened to want to come down on foot. That's another Gompa temple. Near the temple, Bill decided to go swimming in this glacial lake. He got into trouble for it because the lake was actually sacred and had to go through a puja cleansing. He had no idea that he was doing something wrong, but they took juniper boughs and burned them and created a lot of smoke, and he came and had to make amends to the gods. Didn't affect them. There he is at breakfast, happy again. While we were eating breakfast, they would pack up our tents, pack up our sleeping gear, and load up and head out. And breakfast was the last thing to go. Breakfast consisted of pancakes, eggs, oatmeal, all together, every morning, as much as we wanted. Coffee, tang, local honey, you see the honey jar. We ate very well and still lost weight. There's a little plaque to a group that had died on the face of Manaslu from Kazakhstan. Okay, now we're in the last village before we get up into the pass. This is very wintry, very rough living. They're storing hay here on the roof for the winter. There'll be a lot of snow. They'll basically hang out indoors through the winter, living off of the dried food that they put up. It's a very rough life. There's the village, stone tiles, the sun glinting off the stone tile roof. Lots of prayer flags. Kids from the village. And probably Chinese clothes, although there's a lot of tradition there. One of the houses, the woman in the front, 16 years old, and her sister behind her in her early 20s were there on vacation because of the holidays, visiting their father, who's, you can see his knee on the right. So they've come all the way up here from, I think, the monastery where the elder sister was back in Kathmandu, and the younger sister was in school in Pokhara. The pass is up and to the left. Up and to the right back there is up to Tibet. We saw a lot of traders going up. Here's lumber that's been hand-hewn heading up by yak into Tibet. And I bought some salt that had come from Tibet and asked for change in yuan, which I got. got 2 yuan back. I have no idea what that's worth, but hopefully more and more each day. This is called the Larkia Rest Lodge. There was nothing here, really. But a little stone hut where they set up the food. We had a restless night. We're woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning to start our trek over the pass. This is at 14,000 feet. You can't really sleep that well at 14,000 feet, so waking up at 2 o'clock wasn't really waking up. We left there after breakfast about 3 o'clock, and it took us 12 hours to get to the top. Here we are climbing, and we barely made it back down by sundown. We started out in the dark with our little headlamps and flashlights, and making our way up. Here we go. I'm actually looking back down to take this picture. And there we are at the top. Starting from the left is Beth and Barbie and the head Shuradar and Sangram, who stayed with us. Sangram we actually sent afterwards. We all chipped in and had him go to an English school. We each chipped in, I think, $100, and because we had to pay to keep his family going, replaced his salary for the couple of months that he went to English school. He was a very bright, very attractive young guy with one child, and we just felt he only could speak English and he could command a much higher salary. Saul, Mike in the red jacket, Bill in the blue, me in the green. That's my Powder Forest from Simsbury parka. I had left my heavy parka thinking I was going to get really hot. I didn't. It was freezing. And then Pemba on the far right. Pemba was the only actual Sherpa, ethnically Sherpa of the group. He was a young guy. The rest were Nepalis from the lower level. We're at the top. That's 16,750 feet. There's really no oxygen up there. We're all feeling very fuzzy. Coming back down, there are others in this picture. We sort of went as a group with other trekkers, safety in numbers, and there's also just kind of very little window to make it up and over. You don't spread out. You kind of have to all get up bright and early in the morning, so everybody went over. And there's really only a couple of months that you can trek, 1 month in the spring and 1 month in the fall, so it kind of funnels down right here. That's Saul being carried down by 2 of our guides. I don't think he would have made it down. It was, by then, we were all struggling. And here we are the next morning down at the bottom. Bill trying to wash, freezing cold. That's my towel hanging off the tent in the foreground, frozen solid. Another conning wall. It's looking back at the mountains. There were a few glacial outwatches and glacial scars, and we could really see where the glaciers had receded very quickly. I won't get into climate change, but there's evidence all over the place that we saw. It was very clear. Here again, the trail is going along this sort of limestone cliff. There's not much to hang on to. I was terrified going along here. Omri is the guy who carried all my stuff. I didn't really even figure that out until about here on the trek. He was the nicest guy. I thought he would react negatively to me having to carry all my stuff. He just was so sweet. Not a complaint. He did come to me at one point and say, "Sorry, but something's leaking out of your duffel bag." Well, it was one of the 2 bottles of Hendrick's gin that I had. This was a disaster. Luckily, some of the others had brought some single malt. shared around, and there was some wine. We lived very well. Pine forest. There's just not as much development on this side of the mountain because you can't trade with Tibet without going over the pass again because we're on the far side of the pass. So the trees have grown up. There isn't the same kind of farming until we get lower where you can, again, trade out to the main roads down below. Here we are again, reading, nighttime reading. We're reading a book called The Tibetan Diary. It was written by a guy named Jeff Childs about the region that we just passed through. It talks about history and the culture of that area. There's Beth at home in her tent. Beth and Saul each had a single, and Bill and I shared a tent, which was very cozy, and Beth and Mike and Barbie shared a tent, so there were 4 tents for the 6 of us. And Beth and Saul would take in our duffel bags when the weather was bad to help protect it from the weather. There's a beautiful suspension bridge. These have been built by the Swiss, and we a bit nervous. And they took mule trains across them. They were really very heavily used. And we're just down to the left. We're coming to a town that's civilization. This is where we meet. The last 3 days of our trek is the first 3 days of the trek, going around the Annapurna circuit, which is much more developed. Hot showers, food, fresh chickens. Look at that guy on the upper right, very eyeball. But this seemed very civilized compared to where we were at. When Bree and I did that trek in the 80s, it was very similar to what this trek was now. It has developed as ours has. The roads come much further along. There's state-of-the-art carpentry going on. These little girls I sort of followed down. One had something in her hands, was showing it to the others running through the village. And they turned around, wondering what the heck this guy was following them. Now we're getting back down. Rice paddies across the way there. Getting tropical again. We're about 5,000 feet. Little village perched on the other side. That village would be much poorer, and not having the trail go through it would be quite difficult to get to. There's Bill stopping to take photographs of the spider. It's a fuzzy picture, but this was our first hot shower, a whole trip in this little guest house. We're not quite down to the trailhead yet. Saul and Pemba, we're feeling great. We're about to get back to real food, real civilization. Look at that camera. I just threw this in here. Population is growing. These villages are expanding. So you've got wooden houses being built. We didn't see this on the other side. Everything was stone. It just felt like it's been that way forever. And here you get sort of the outskirts of town hanging out over the edges now. And they're building a road up here. They've had trouble with this little section of the road. If you look on the upper left, you can see the terracing where the land is broken away from the terraces. In the lower right there, you can see the gabions, and that's the scale is a little hard to get there, but there's a stone wall to hold the road up. And this could have been, I was scared that if an earthquake came, that our trail would disappear. It's stuck up there for a long time. Back to the rice paddies. It's the road building crew. Again, where the water comes out is the center of the village. Washing, cleaning, cooking, really the social fabric centers around the wash basin.